Hello, thank you for another spiritual discussion. This video will be on more on Kabbalah, and the concepts are taken from a book named A Very Narrow Bridge by Michael Lehman. That's Laitman, Michael Lehman. And the book is A Very Narrow Bridge. The roots of the wisdom of Kabbalah and the resistance to it go back roughly 38 centuries. Abraham, the patriarch, represents the key values of Kabbalah. The Midrash writes that along with the appearance of Abraham and his wisdom, there also appeared the resistance to the wisdom as represented by Nimrod, king of Babylon. In later times, the resistance to the wisdom of Kabbalah appeared within the Jewish people too. Among other manifestations, it included boycotting Kabbalists and burning their books. A review of previous centuries revealed that each time great Kabbalists tried to circulate the wisdom to the general public, they encountered fierce resistance led by elements within the Jewish society. Adam's revelation is the point at which the spiritual development of humanity begins. This is why it is the beginning of the count in the Hebrew calendar. The year 5779 in which we live today marks the number of years since the time of the spiritual development of humanity began. Adam discovered that nature's system is managed through one comprehensive force that engenders the system of forces that operate on every level of nature. Nature comprises many forces, yet we can perceive only those which can be created within us with some equivalence. The similar force of nature is also referred to as the upper force, since it is above man's natural ability to perceive. To perceive it, one must first change one's nature into a form that is similar to the nature of the upper force. The state in which a human being grasps the upper force and discovers the general law of nature is also called the revelation of godliness or the revelation of the Creator. The wisdom of Kabbalah shatters one of humanity's greatest myths, that God is some being that dwells in heaven and sentences fate for better or worse. Rather, it is the overall law of nature. When speaking of the revelation of this force or law, it refers to the understanding of the operating system of the reality we see before us. The discoveries of Adam continue to develop through a lineage of researchers called Kabbalists who followed in Adam's footsteps. The Kabbalist knowledge was handed down from teacher to student, from generation to generation. According to the wisdom of Kabbalah, perceiving the similar form that operates in the whole system of nature depends on developing a desire to do good to others. The more people generate relationships and ties that are based on a mutual desire to benefit one another, to treat each other well, to think of the well-being of others rather than only of themselves, the more synchronized they will be with the general force of nature. Gradually, they will become similar to it, and in the unity that will be built among them, they will begin to grasp it, since they will become one like it. The desire to bestow pertains to a desire to give and to love. Bestower means giving abundance, giving love. Opposite the desire to bestow abundance upon others, there is the will to receive only for ourselves, even at the expense of others. Together with his wife Sarah, Abraham taught what he had discovered about the structure of the world, the one inclusive law by which reality is built, and the way of life that suits this structure. He understood that most people were not ready to grasp what he had discovered. So he assembled his students and left Babylon. Abraham's idea is what assembled different people from different clans and tribes and people and turned them into a unified nation made of people who were previously as all the Babylonians. Initially, Abraham's group thrived in the land of Canaan. Its people learned to see the world from a broad perspective, which takes everyone into account as a single system. However, because of the intensification of the will to receive in Israel as well, the ego burst out. The rift that was created in the group of Abraham's followers manifested in a social and economic crisis that deteriorated into a famine in the land of Canaan, forcing them to go to Egypt. The Torah may seem like a collection of stories and rules, but deep within it hides the guidance toward developing man's desire and leading him from self-love to the desire to bestow upon others. This guidance is what the wisdom of Kabbalah teaches. According to the wisdom of Kabbalah, throughout this chain of events, there is a cumulative development and not regression. At each level of development, a stronger egotistic force is revealed in the people of Israel, and they must build above it a higher level of unity with the help of the method of connection that is hidden in the Torah. The purpose of creation lies on the shoulders of the whole of the human race, black or white or yellow or brown or red, without any essential difference. God in Kabbalah is the one singular force that operates in all of reality with a nature of bestower, giving, and love. In order to discover the inner layer of the Torah, one must resemble the nature of God, namely acquire the quality of bestower. That is, a person should develop one's nature so that it separates from self-love and the will to receive for oneself alone, and transform into a desire to bestow contentment upon others. As long as one has not achieved this development, the inner layer of the Torah remains concealed from that person. The Kabbalists developed the ability of bestower within them. In it, they found a broader reality than the one we naturally perceive using only our quality of reception. They call this reality the upper world or the spiritual world. In this reality, they have found a law of cause and effect that they call the law of root and branch. This law states that from every element in the upper world, regarded as the root, a force comes into our world where it generates a corporeal branch. The root is the cause, and the branch is the effect. The roots are above in the hidden spiritual level of reality, while the branches are below in the corporeal level of reality. To illustrate the process where a spiritual root engenders a corporeal branch by way of cause and effect, think of a picture on a computer screen. Take, for example, a picture of a house with a white picket fence surrounding it. In the computer, that picture consists of lines of code in a programming language. But when the order is given, the code is sent to the monitor, where it is transformed into pixels, illuminated according to a certain order and colors that create the picture of the house and picket fence. If we want to change something in the picture, we must change the code that creates it, meaning the cause, the root. Only then will the branch change, meaning the image on the screen. According to the law of root and branch, the image of reality we see is a result, a branch, of a spiritual cause or root. Since each branch in our world has a unique spiritual root, Kabbalists use the names of the branches in our world to refer to the spiritual roots that generate them. When Kabbalists discovered the law of root and branch, they began to borrow names from our world in order to describe elements, forces, and events that take place in the upper world. This is how the language of the branches was developed based on the parallel between the upper world of roots and our world of branches. The Torah was written using the coding of the language of the branches. This is why they appear to discuss worldly events, objects, plants, animals, and people, while in fact they are branches that point to their upper roots. In other words, the Torah discusses the spiritual world but uses words taken from our world. Because Kabbalists obtain the upper force and live in both perceptions of reality, the corporeal and spiritual, they can decipher the code of the language of the branches and identify the spiritual root to which the corporeal branch points. Let us take, for example, the verse, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth," which is in the Bible is Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. The text seems to speak of a godly being that created planet Earth and everything on it, as well as the skies and stars we know. But in the eyes of Kabbalists, this verse depicts the creation of two elementary forces of reality: the force of bestower, called heaven, and the force of reception, called earth. From here on, the Torah depicts the interaction between these two forces, just as physics depicts the fundamental laws of nature, behavior of materials, energy, and space and time. People who are not Kabbalists can only see material depictions of the biblical text as though it were a history book, a code of laws, and so forth. As a result, over the generation, many erroneous interpretations to the Torah emerged. Religions were formed based on these interpretations of the text, and views concerning the Torah were formed not knowing that the words are coded in the language of the branches. These misunderstandings created a deep chasm between the spiritual way in which Kabbalists relate to the Torah and the corporeal way that every religion interprets it. And bringing this video to a close, please feel free to share it with others. And if you would like to see more of this type of content, please click the subscribe button below on this channel. Also, after subscribing, if you click the notification bell, you will be notified of any new videos that I make. I would also love to have your comments and questions below. Just be respectful to one another. And again, I say thank you.